Hi, I'm Cassie Janda, and I'm an instructional designer. My background was in education. I started out as an English teacher, but I spent most of my career as a teacher librarian. I was very involved with various technology initiatives, and I had the opportunity to present to adults at the district, regional, and state level, which is kind of what led to my interest in learning and development and instructional design. My role is instructional designer. I'm one of two in my department with a director that also has a background in instructional design. I'm part of a larger training team. We support a large network of ambulatory or outpatient clinics, and I primarily create e-learning courses and job aids to support new software implementations or updates for either the business staff or the clinical staff in the clinics. We have trainers and support specialists that provide classroom training and on-demand consultations, and my SMEs are typically the clinical or business training managers. Because they have experience working in the clinics as well as in training, they're really great to work with and understand what kind of information I will need to create my courses. Every project I worked on has been on part of a different team depending on where the project originates, and each has been managed a little differently. One project was system-wide, and it involved our internal software developers as well as developers and implementation specialists from the software company. So we had an internal project manager on our technology team that led a daily stand-up meeting, and we tracked our progress on Jira, which is a project management tool. Another project, for example, initiated with the finance department, and they chose to have it managed by an outside consulting company. So it's been really neat to work with different people in the company and see how different people manage their projects. So I've been able to kind of take that back and learn different ways to manage my own projects. On a daily basis, I will typically have at least one meeting with either the project team or one of the SMEs for a project that I'm working on. Because our team is so small, I'm responsible for the end-to-end development of any project I'm working on. Most of my time is spent in analysis, design, and development. So if I'm working on a new project, I might be meeting with a SME to understand the current state of how the end users are doing a certain workflow that will be affected by the new software. Or I might be on a call seeing a software demo or test, or actually working on the design document or developing the course if I'm further into the project. Most likely, I will be switching between some of these tasks because I'll be working on different projects that are at different stages. As far as development tools, we use Adobe products. So, for example, I use Audition to record and edit my voiceovers. I use Premiere Pro to edit video. Captivate is our authoring tool, and we also use PowerPoint. On a weekly or monthly basis, once I'm further into development on a course, I'll share the prototype with the stakeholders for feedback. And then once I've made all the changes, I'll record my voiceover and finish developing. Unfortunately, because I am usually working on a project the same time as they're developing the custom-built software. Once they get further into testing, they might decide that they want additional changes, which might change the deadline for the go-live of the product, which usually changes the deadline for the course. So I might need to go in and add some last-minute changes. But once all of the changes have been made and the course has been published, then I will assign it to end users in our LMS. Something I found really helpful as I started transitioning to instructional design was having a community to bounce ideas off of, ask questions, and to give and receive feedback on my work. So in instructional design, learning how to receive feedback is really essential because you need to get comfortable with people viewing your work at different stages. For example, if you're a real perfectionist and you don't really like sharing your work until it's perfect, I would advise early in the process, doing it messy like the Academy recommends, create some work samples and share it with people to get feedback. They might see something that you don't see, or they might be able to represent your end user because they don't have the same background knowledge that you have. And ultimately, all the feedback is for the same thing that you want, which is to have the best course possible for your end user. So learning to share your work and receive feedback is really essential and will help you be successful as an instructional designer.
Hi, I'm Ivett and I'm a learning content manager. As a learning content manager, I work with a L&D team, a learning and development team. In the team, we have a few IDs. We have project managers. We do have me, the learning content manager, and we also have the chief learning officer. Now, that is the closest team. And in the wider team, we also work with creatives. So any kind of downloadables or videos, we would just pass them onto the creatives team, and they would like pass it back to us. So we write the content, but they are the ones producing the videos or any kind of PDFs and downloadables. We also work with a linguist who is in charge of proofreading everything that we produce. Our training goes through a lot of QA processes, and that's one of those as well. So we have a proofreading lady. And because we work with our own, not LMS, but CMS, content management system, that is created by us, we also have a platform team who are in charge of maintaining that platform and liaising with us, making sure that we have the right functionalities and everything is working the way it needs it to be working for the content that we're producing. And of course, we have the SMEs as well, and the main client that we work with who help us produce the content and oversee the different projects that we work on. We have quite a lot of projects simultaneously running. So my role as a learning content manager is different from an ID, but it is kind of similar. So what I do is I work with the IDs, I work with the SMEs, I work with the project managers to make sure that even though we have a lot of different projects running and we have different IDs working on the content, our content library is consistent. So it is me who is overviewing everything and making sure that the quality is right, the tone of voice is right, the questioning is right. I also check dependencies. So one ID might be working on something that might affect something else that nobody is working on at the moment, or another ID is working on. So it's kind of my responsibility to make sure that we address issues if they come up, or we update every single lesson in our training library that is affected. It's also my task to check product updates. So we're basically training on a SaaS product, so that it's constantly improving. So if any changes are coming out in the product, it is my job to check what needs to be updated, where do we need to make that update, what the priority is for that update. And in terms of the QA, I do a lot of QA related stuff. So any kind of feedback coming from the QA people is basically triaged by me. I either deal with them or pass them on to the IDs, or we investigate them further with the SMEs. So on a daily basis, the day very much depends on where we're at in terms of the product or our training, how close we are to the deadlines, what day of the week it is. Normally we start the day with a Scrum meeting, so that's the IDs and the PMs and me, and we basically discuss where we're at, what we were working on yesterday, how we're progressing, if we have any blockers. So it's just to keep on top of what we're working on and how we're progressing basically. And then there are days when that's it. That's the only kind of communication I have with my team, and we just chat with each other if there's anything coming up. But there are other days when I have a lot of meetings, for example. So I have meetings with the team, I have meetings with the PM, I have meetings with the SME. So it very much depends on, the day. But overall, there are days as well when I have plenty of things on my list at the beginning of the day, and there are days when I have nothing on my list, and they always come in, so it's never an issue, but there's always something to do. In terms of the IDs, I think they always do what they need to work on. It's that lesson or another one. And in terms of like what we do on a weekly basis, we do have, not every day, but we do have weekly calls with the SMEs, for example, to check on with them, or they check on the training, or we pass them on questions to them that we couldn't resolve in the chat. Communication. And we also have backlog grooming every week, where we go through the catalog and then all the major projects that we work on, and we basically break it down into pieces and see what are the different things that still need to be done and where we're at. And on a weekly basis, I also go into the product update list. As I said, as I mentioned, we work on a SaaS product, so I need to make sure that I'm on top of every single changes that might affect our training library. And on a monthly basis, we do have meetings with the ID team, where we discuss like what how we're doing, what we could do better, what kind of improvements we could do to make the training better, or even the platform better. As I mentioned, we have our own CMS, so sometimes we have meetings with the platform team as well to see what they're working on, how that could feed into what we're working on, and how what we're working on would need or would require some kind of update in the CMS as well. In terms of the skills needed, I think because we work with our own CMS, as I mentioned, we don't work with a fancy authoring tool. We don't use Storyline. We don't create videos. As I mentioned, we have our own creatives team, so they design those kind of fancy content for us. So for us, no tech skill is really needed. Our CMS it takes a little bit of learning, but it's once you know how to use it, it's really easy to use. So no, as I said, no tech skills are really needed. What my role really needs is attention to detail, because I do a lot of QA stuff. So attention detail is really crucial, and that is very much desirable from our IDs as well. Learning theories, definitely knowing the learning theories, because one of the things that I check for, as I mentioned, I check on consistency, but I also check on flow, and it is like my job as well to pick up any kind of issues where the learners might have issues. So knowing the learning theories is really important in my job as well. And because we work with very much technical content that none of us know a lot about, really, even though we've been doing that for quite some time, we very much rely on the SMEs and really good communication with the SMEs to extract that kind of information that we need from them. So communication skills and listening skills and questioning skills are really important, and kind of strategic skills. So when they give us some kind of information, like unwrapping that information, however complex it is, and making sure that we present it in a user-friendly way.